Here to answer the questions, and I have to apologize up front. We may not get through all the questions, and if we don't, they'll be answered on the website, so please don't worry about that. Also, after the question and answer period, after the panelists speak, you can have an opportunity to go back to those tables. So if you have a follow-on question, or your question wasn't answered properly or to your satisfaction, the same people will be out there and answer your question. The panelists will also roam around afterwards, and we can redo some of the questions if we have to. All righty? I noticed that some of the questions might be personal in nature, like maybe you're going to give me your address and say I have an issue there. I'm not going to read the address here, and we kind of ask you to put those on the 3x5 cards or whatever, but if I notice that it's a question that doesn't pertain to one of the things we're talking about tonight, it's not that I don't want to answer the question, but I don't want to embarrass anybody, and I don't want to give away a home address to the public, because this is on Facebook. So those kinds of questions are better asked at the tables afterwards, okay? And so understand that's how we're going to do that. Okay, so again, I'm Bob Klein. I'm with the Corps of Engineers, but I'm out of Los Angeles. I'm a risk manager normally for VA projects, but I facilitate once in a while these kinds of activities because I have no relationship to St. Louis District, and I do this one in Portland and Stockton and all over the place. And hopefully I can facilitate so you get your questions answered, to the best of our ability. We have, of course, some press folks here, and I mentioned we're going to do Facebook. All righty. So again, going through real fast, I kind of did the first part already. You spent about a half hour or so going through the tables. And then we're going to do 3 presentations. We have 2 presenters here and 1 over here. And then when they get done, then we're going to do the Q&A. So if you have questions that you've written out, I don't know where my question folks are. Where are they at? Oh, there she is. Give the questions to either one of these 2 young ladies. And if you're still writing, that's fine. While they're doing the presentation, I have to take those questions offline and look at them really quickly. Because if some are very similar, then I don't want to keep asking the same question over and over again. Plus, I saw your sign-in sheet. Some of you, handwriting is worse than mine. So if I can't figure it out, I may have to say, who wrote this one. But I need that half hour over here by myself to do that while the presentations are going on. Okay? I won't introduce the panelists yet. I'll introduce it when they start talking. I'll introduce the presenters. But before we do that, I believe we have staffers from some governmental agencies here, and I apologize, I don't know who they are because I'm not from here. So we have somebody from the Senator's office here, one of the staffers. Can he introduce himself? Oh, there you are. Thank you. Thank you. Again, in the back. And then the chairperson, Webb, I think was at the last meeting. I don't believe she's here now, nor one of her staffers. Is that correct? Okay. And does any other government official or staffer of a government official want to be identified? Yes, sir. Oh, excellent. Excellent. Okay, cool. All righty. When we get near the end, I'm going to reintroduce the tables back there. But basically, we have a state agency over here, which is the Department of Health and Aging. And then we have core tables here that have to do with the projects themselves that will be discussed here. But again, you can see the slides and pictures and all that over there. Okay? So, anybody have any questions? All right. Last thing, administrator. We do this in California because, we're earthquake country. You guys are tornado country. So if we have a problem, whatever that might be, you exit straight out the back. You don't have to go through the same door you came in. You can go through where the guard is just to get out of here if there's an emergency. All go out, straight out to the parking lot, and we'll meet you out there, all of us. We'll count heads and make sure nobody's left in the building if there's an emergency. You all know where the bathrooms are. You kind of saw them when you came in. Okay? All right. I think sometimes in some meetings, some folks, kind of get excited and all that. I will control both the interviewers, the panelists, the presenters, the audience. If we're going too long on one question, I'm sorry, I'll have to cut it off because we've got to get as many questions out as we can. Again, you'll have 2 more opportunities back there and on the website to get your questions answered. So don't worry about that. I'm not a big believer in the silent phone thing. But if you want to turn your phones on silent, that's great. If you need to take a phone call, because a lot of you are parents, you have kids out there, just go out in the hallway and take your phone call. It doesn't bother me. It won't bother any of the panelists. Okay. So, to get started, we want to do some presentations. And we're going to start with Phil Moser. No, I'm sorry. Oh, Colonel, I'm sorry. Oh, sure. Change the plan. You're up, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Colonel Kevin Gollinghorst. I'm the commander of the St. Louis District here. And I'd just like to welcome you all, whether you're here in person, thank you for joining tonight, whether you're online or maybe watching this later on as a recording, we want to welcome you. And thank you for caring and for wanting to know more. I have to admit, I feel in a little bit of a deja vu. Many of you, I see a lot of familiar faces, were here 6+ months ago with our initial update that we provided after the intensive testing done at Jana Elementary and along Coldwater Creek. And so, but we're glad to be here. And as was mentioned, after the formal presentation gets done, after the question and answer, we'll continue to stay for the amount of time here. As you can see, a lot of displays, a lot of expertise in the room here. So I'll be keeping my remarks short. I really want to focus on the team. And we do have a great team, and they're also a very humble team. So I'll just kind of brag on them a little bit, whether it be the government civilians that we have, our industry partners, our regulators from the state and federal partners. I mean, we really wanted to make sure that we're doing a thorough job here. And part of that process is communication on what has been going on, what's been done in the past, what's been going on now, and what we're project for the future. So again, we do have the expertise. I'm very confident in this team. We know that this area has been through a lot. You know, with our chapter over the last 25 years of starting this project as a Corps of Engineers, coming in, partner with the community, partner with elected officials to do this work. Much of the work has been done, but there's still the final work to get through here. So that's what we want to let you know, what has been done, where we're at, and where we're going. And then lastly, I'll end with is just to focus on our commitment. As I've mentioned, we've been here for 2.5 decades. It could be a decade and a half more, whatever it takes, really, to focus on the contamination and the remediation to make sure the Coldwater Creek and the surrounding community has been taken care of. So with that, I'll stop, and then now I'll call up Mr. Phil Mosier to continue with the first presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, and I echo that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We really want to make sure that we have good information for you guys and get some questions answered, and also let you guys know some other members of the team that really are dedicated to this profession, whether it's Corps or contractors. We have quite a few individuals here ready to answer questions. So to get started, of course, myself, Phil Mosier, the Chief of the FUSRAP and Environmental Branch in the St. Louis District. Following me is going to be a couple of our project managers to give some updates on their sites. But first off, I wanted to give you a little bit programmatic update with some of the things that we're trying to do to make sure that we are communicating everything that we're doing to the public. So, next slide. First off, you went to the next presentation. I'll go ahead and talk to it, but we always want to make sure that we recognize our federal and state partners. They're part of this program, part of this process as well. Every document that we do when we send out, for instance, the Jana Elementary documents, the final status survey evaluations, get reviewed by our partners at EPA and our partners at Department of Health and Senior Services and Missouri Department of Natural Resources. And we get questions, we go through a response period and respond to those questions, and then come to an agreement and give a final document to where we can actually come out and say, where the Corps of Engineers comes out with this document and our partners at the federal and state level agree with this document. So that is what happens on all of those areas. And Jana Elementary is no exception. It went through that same rigorous review process as well. Next slide. An overall view of the St. Louis sites for the disposal of contaminated soil. A lot of this is similar information that we've been giving at our virtual open houses for our site updates and overall updates, but this kind of gives you an idea of how much has been done over the years that we have had, the Corps of Engineers has had this mission. So if you look at that, in totality, over 1.4 million cubic yards. That would overflow Busch Stadium, the amount of soil that has been shipped off-site to an out-of-state licensed disposal facility. So you put that in context, and 17,000 rail cars going out to those disposal facilities as well. And we're not stopping. We're continuing to ship. So you see that FY23 number. We're running quite a bit, doing quite a bit of contaminated soil shipping at both the downtown site and the soil coming from the SLAPS VPs as well, as you see there for our planned actions in FY23. Next slide. To go along with that, with what we have done and what we will continue to do, as we move down and evaluate properties, we're able to do the sampling, and if there's no remediation required, provide a document to those owners, whether it's a business or a property or a residential property, to make sure that they have a document in hand that shows that their property is released for unlimited use and unrestricted exposure. So in that case, for the St. Louis, North St. Louis County sites, you see how many we've been able to do thus far and what we're planning for, what we did last year and what we're planning for this year. And also the downtown site, a little smaller, but we're still continuing that aspect as well for the downtown site and releasing properties as we're able to complete them. Next slide. The next portion of the presentation focuses on our community involvement, and this is not something that is new. We've been having public meetings, we've been out and making sure that we are addressing concerns, giving presentations, answering questions for the life of the program. That's part of our community involvement program, our commitment to this community to make sure that we are open with you guys and answering those questions. So we have our community involvement plan that is available online. It has some good information in there, as well as the specifics about the program, some history associated with that as well, and what we have done up to this point. Also, the next bullet there, as far as our public meeting or an open house with the community, to make sure that we is relaying that information, because there's a lot of good work that's going on that we want everybody to know about. Next slide. To that end, we have Facebook and Twitter, which we put out periodic updates on through our district's Facebook page or district's Twitter page. When we have the opportunity to put out that information or point people to a good resource, we're going to do that. So if you haven't been a part of that, the actual Facebook page or a district, please like and subscribe. Next slide. All right, so community involvement. The other aspect that we have is individual coordination with property owners. Every time we're going to go do a property, we have a right of entry table back there. We wanted to make sure everybody understood that whole process, what we have to go through. We have great individuals working on the ground every day to work with the property owners to get those rights of entry and move forward in that process when we need that sampling, and then if we do need remediation, that aspect of it as well. We send out the postcards to the residents to let them know we're going to be in the area and doing sampling. We also want to let everybody know that we're coming up on a 5-year review period, so we're going to be conducting interviews. So those property owners, anybody interested in the program, we're interested in doing those interviews to see if there's any areas of improvement that we can have. We can incorporate that into the comments of the 5-year review moving forward. We also have a unique email address. It's on the Contact Us page at the end of each one of these slides, so you guys can email us with any questions, concerns, or at any point in time, if you just want to reach out to us and say hi, that's fine too. Next slide. So as far as the last slide for community involvement, kind of summing it up, that web page, they kind of alluded to that we have a lot of documents on. There's a lot of good information on there, whether it's documents, whether it's fact sheets, or the 5-year review I talked about. The last 5 years on there. The next one's going to be on there as well. So lots of good information. We have some of those fact sheets printed out for you guys to take home with you to get some of that information. Hopefully we can answer a lot of those questions that are out there. One other thing that we do with these fact sheets, if we get questions from you, that's something that someone has a question about, so that's a good opportunity for us to make a fact sheet so everybody has that information. You send that question to us, we want to make sure if that's a question that's out there, hey, we address that as well. So providing that fact sheet. So that's another commitment that we have to make sure everybody understands what's going on, the complex work that we do, so that everybody kind of comes to that understanding and moving forward, and so that we can help this community get back to a sense of being that community and get rid of all the contamination eventually. But as we're going through that process, it's a lot of technical information out there, so those fact sheets are one of those areas that are kind of trying to help with that. The last slide is just a Contact Us slide. It's going to be on each one of the presentations that Fitzgerald and Joanne are going to give as well, but I just wanted to reiterate, hey, please reach out to us. We have the website, we have the email, we also have a phone contact, we also have an administrative record, which is available online, and also in person at our Hazelwood office there in Slaps. So, but it's a really great resource online that you're able to go on there and get documentations for our administrative record, which is everything that leads up to a record of decision. All right. That's it for me. I will turn it over to Fitzgerald, who's coming up next for their St. Louis downtown site updates.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Figueroa Garcia. I'm the San Luis Downtown Site Project Manager. I will be covering the downtown site tonight. Next. So a little bit of background about the San Luis site is that it's an area of 45 acres of chemical manufacturing complex owned by the Malincrot, and 165 acres of adjacent properties that are owned by government entities and private. It's mostly industrial and commercial. So the primary contaminants of concern is in all the sites for San Luis downtown, for San Luis area, are the uranium, thorium, radium, arsenic, and cadmium. We are operating under the two operable units. One is the accessible soils and groundwater that was established on the 1998 record of decision, which require us to selective excavation and off-site disposal. And second would be the groundwater monitoring. The second operable unit is the inaccessible soils group 1, which is established on the 2014 record of decision, which found no further action that will harm the human health and environment. We are continue working on areas that are inaccessible. We continue doing investigations. And we are, right now, there is some areas like on the buildings, railroads, and all the stuff that are inaccessible, but we are continuing doing investigation on those. Next. So just to give you a idea of where the downtown site is located, because I got a few questions before coming over here. So we are like about 50 miles southeast from here, from this location, and that is about like 3.5 miles north of the arch. As you see, and that like I mentioned before, the yellow area that is graded, shaded, excuse me, is the Malincrot complex. And there is few properties around that are belong to the Terminal Railroad Association, Gunter Salt, and different other entities. The red line is the one that defines our record of decision, and that's the area where we are working on in downtown site. Next. So before, when Phil was pointing out that the amount of effort that we have done so far in the whole San Luis area, so particularly in the San Luis downtown site, so we have removed 336,667 cubic yards of material. And we have released we have released for beneficial use 52 properties or areas. Next. So this year, this fiscal year 23, we have removed approximately 2,576 cubic yards, and our goal for this year is to complete that goal for this year. We also have completed 14 utility support events in which we ensured that radiological safety and protection of utility personnel and property owners during work activities in areas that we suspect that have contamination are protected. Next. So this is our commitment for FY24 and beyond. So we will continue evaluating areas of soils that are previously considered inaccessible. We are continuing remediation on the record of decision. We continue ground monitoring. We provide utility support to entities to ensure that the work that they are doing in the downtown side is safe for their employees and their utility personnel. Remedy is expected to be completed by the fiscal year 29 and transferred to the Department of Energy for the legacy management. Next. Now, as we completed the site, we have approximately 90% of the site complete, but we are working on the last 10%, and that is where it gets difficult to work because, as you see on the pictures, we are doing remediation that they were inaccessible at some point, or remediation on areas that are tied for the construction equipment and personnel to work with. This increase time and increase the cost of completion. Lastly, would be we need right of entry for work on those properties down there. Nick back there, he is eager to sign some of those if you guys are want to sign today. So, and that's it. Next, that will be the contact slide for everybody to take a note. Next will be Joanne Wade. She's the project manager for the North County sites.
Good evening, everyone. Like Fitzgerald said, my name is Joanne Wade. I'm the project manager for the North County sites. And I'm going to go to the first slide. Right now, the purpose of the meeting for my presentation is just to update you on the Jana documents and to update you on the St. Louis Airport vicinity properties, which includes Coldwater Creek. And we'll be talking about the Jana documents, Coldwater Creek updates, what we're doing at the SLAT's VPs, and then contact information is the same. Next slide. Okay, first Jana document that we've already released is the school structure document, and that document it showed that the school met the criteria for unlimited use and unrestricted exposure, and this is the actual address. If you go ahead and put that online, you'll go directly to the document. Sorry, you go directly to the document. There are a lot of copies of the presentations in the back so that you'll be able to have the web addresses of all these documents. Next one would be the Lead 210 evaluation document, and that also shows, that the risk and toxicity health assessments for the school, and it's also the web address that was also released, and it is on our website for you to see. We also have copies in the back that you could look at if you want to see what the document looks like, and there's a brochure for each of these documents too in the back that I had printed up. And the next one is the Jana School soils document, which we've completed all that sampling, and it shows our results, which is, again, it's consistent with the reference area for background data for all the soils. And again, here's the web address. So all those documents on Jana School have been completed, and they are available for public to read and to go through. And they're all on our website. And now at Jana, our current activities at Jana, if everyone has seen, we actually started the preliminary activities for remedial activities at at Jana. We did that, we started that earlier this month. So I don't know if anybody's out there, they've been taking down trees and building roads and getting everything started. And they'll start doing remediation, actual remediation of site probably later this month, but we'll be going from June to November. So that's the time frame for the remediation at Jana, and we'll be done later this fall, and they'll have restoration done. So it's actively working. When we, before we started at the site, we actually put out these door hangers here, and the door hangers just told all the neighbors that we were going to be working at the site, and so they knew what was going on. We put out several all around the area and also across the creek so that people would know what was happening. There's a lot of work going on. They took a lot of trees down, and it's pretty much, there's a lot, it's pretty cleared out right now, so they'll be working there for a long time, like I said. Okay, our next one. And then we are also doing additional work for the Hazelwood School District and Jana. So we're working with our Army Geospatial Center, and they're performing independent investigation on soil movement in North St. Louis County, which a lot of people have requested for us to do, to get that done. And it includes historical aerial photography and satellite imagery and cartography, textual records from 1940 through present day. So we're doing a lot of, they're doing a lot of work for us and a lot of research for us on that. We're also having another contractor do preliminary site assessment, abbreviated, at the Hazelwood School District sites to study the historical and current land uses for these properties, so that, again, we want to make sure that there's nothing there. If we find anything, then we can go in and start working in the areas. This includes historical records of the research for incorporated, to be incorporated into a document, which we'll release when it's done. And then, of course, a lot of people, I think, are familiar with our monthly meetings that we initiated in January. We've had 4 so far, and we'll restart those meetings in July. They're all virtual meetings, and a lot of people have been on, and we're able to give a short presentation, and then we open it up for any kind of questions or comments from the public. So it's a good time to ask us questions, and we are available to answer any questions if you need it. Next slide should be Coldwater Creek. As most of you know, Coldwater Creek is 14 miles from Banshee Road to the Missouri River. We are almost completed with our preliminary assessment of the creek. We're down there close to the river. That's why I got pictures of the river. We're down there close to the river, almost getting ready to do the park in that area, so we're almost done. And then we'll be going back in and we'll be doing additional PDI sampling when we start doing our remedial designs for each area of contamination that we found along the creek. The creek was contaminated from flooding, from surface water and runoff from the source areas. And, our source areas are completed, which is the St. Louis Airport site, that was completed in 2007. And then the His Ventura and Laddie Avenue properties, they were completed in 2013. So all our source sites have been completed. We've taken over 34,000 samples, and we're still sampling, so we haven't stopped. And our preliminary investigations are almost, like I said, complete. Contamination does exist along the creek in spotty areas on creek banks and adjacent properties. So we have areas that we've actually shown in the back in one of the posters. So if you are interested in the Coldwater Creek table, it's in the back there. And right now, the contamination does not pose a risk to human health or the environment in its current configuration, and that's below ground surface and away from populated areas. The next Coldwater Creek one is, like I said before, we have initiated our pre-design investigation, sampling to write remedial designs to start remediating Coldwater Creek, the first one being Jana. So that's a lot of work going on there, and we are doing additional remedial designs, so we will continue to be working on down the creek as late as the years go by. We do send status letters out to each property owner. As I usually send out a preliminary letter to let you know once sampling is done that we've been on your property and let you know what we found and what we didn't find, and if we found contamination, and usually I'll send a figure and let you know where the contamination is on your property, and if you want to talk to us, we would come down and talk to you about it. And then the second set of letters you would get is when those properties are actually, sampling is actually in a document, and that's a finalized document, and then you'll get another letter saying that we've actually finalized it and there is no contamination on your property. And those are good letters to save for if you're selling your house, to let people know that your property has been sampled and investigated by the Corps. The property's along Coldwater Creek, that's what I'm. So we do monitor the creek in 11 locations. We do it twice a year. So we monitor to confirm that contamination from our current FUSRAP activities are not impacting the creek and that are the sediments, so nothing is getting recontaminated. And our monitoring data is all found on the INDARS, which again is on our website. And again, that's our web address, and you can find our MDARS on the website. You can find all the monitoring data in those MDARS, and they're yearly. So every year we print all the monitoring data that we do. And the next slide is after the big flood last year in July, we actually, the Corps actually went out and started sampling sediment along the creek that was left over from the flooding. We wanted to ensure that nothing was being recontaminated. We took over 280 samples along the entire length of the creek, and we sampled several areas. These are parks, and so we sampled roads, culverts, playgrounds, equipment, bike paths, guardrails, and fences, and everything else that they can find, any sediment, they scraped it off and to do analysis on. The results show that there's no radiological contamination above our cleanup criteria that was redeposited in the Coldwater Creek floodplain by the floodwater. So nothing has been recontaminated. Again, you can find this document on our website, and that web address will bring you directly to the document. Next one. Now we could go to our North St. Louis County sites, our regular St. Louis VPs. There's 148 VPs that are south of Pershaw Road. Those are mostly industrial and commercial vicinity properties, and it includes over 1,200 acres. So we're doing a lot of remediation up there. We've done most of our remediation in that area, and we're still doing the farmer ball fields, which is also in that area. The ball fields will be completed in the fall. There's 608 Coldwater Creek properties that are north of Pershaw Road, and that includes about 750 acres. Those are all, we call them SLAPS VPs. They're all vicinity properties. Like I said, our ball fields are almost done. We are now working with St. Louis County. They're going to be coming in and removing the McDonald Bridge over Coldwater Creek. And so we're working directly with the county so that we could start remediating the areas of the creek on McDonald Boulevard and in the areas of the bridge. So we're going to be remediating all of McDonald Boulevard. But they're going to be closing McDonald Boulevard next year, so just to let you know, so that they're going to start working and then we could start remediating. So that work would start in October. We've also completed vicinity properties VP 56, which is on Pershaw Road, and Pershaw Road also, which MoDOT was working on. MoDOT wanted to come in, wanted to complete the Pershaw Road area and put in a bike path and sidewalks. So we wanted to complete all that remediation before they came in and did that. So those two properties we've completed so far this year. And then we do, again, our monthly meetings. We'll continue our monthly meetings, and they will restart again at the end of July. Next, I just wanted to talk about the next one is just St. Louis Airport site. It was a source site. It was cleaned up in 2007. And then Laddie Avenue Properties, that was also another source site that was also cleaned up in 2013. All the buildings where we had to go in and remediate, clean out the buildings and at the Futura site, which is here. And then there's two other sites, 1L and 2L also have buildings that were adjacent to that site that we also had to go in and remediate. So those sites are done. And of course, our environmental monitoring continues on both sites. And again, contact information, that's the same one as before, so contact us whenever you can. And again, we will be online with you at the end of July if you have any additional questions after the meeting. We have additional meetings, questions and answers now that a lot of the citizens have given us in January and February, and we've printed them out, and they're on the back there with our fact sheet so that you can see the questions that they have asked and the answers that we have provided. So as more questions you ask, and we give you questions, and that we'll be updating that all the time so we can make sure you have all the questions and answers that you need. And that's all I have. Okay. Thank you.
So that was phase 2 of our little operation here. Now we're going to do questions and answers. And I have to say, and I apologize for not doing this up front, I was going to ask you not to ask questions while the rep here, and you didn't ask questions. That was great. So I should have told you that earlier because we have some great questions and want to get to all of them. So we have about 18, 19 questions. And one of them happens to be a statement that somebody's supposed to read, which I will do so. And then I'm trying to put them in order so they're a logical sequence. But before I do that, I want to introduce our board here, our panel. So you've already met the Colonel. And Phil Moser came up here as one of the speakers. So Phil Moser is a PM. Correct me if I'm wrong, panelists, please. Next to him is Mr. Parks, and he is a tech lead. Correct? Okay. And then the last on the end there is John Rankin, who's not only a lead health physicist, and he's lead because he's the only health physicist, by the way, we have, but he's also the radiation safety officer. Okay, cool. So that's our panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this one statement that the gentleman wanted me to read, and I'll do that. And then when we have a question, I'll read the question, and then the panel is going to choose among themselves who's going to answer the question. Some of them are, little compound questions, so if you wrote it, I may break it up a little bit to make some sense, so we can, because maybe it's a different person will answer the different parts. But the one statement that somebody wanted me to read, I'll just read it into the record, and he actually puts in there just for the record. He's not asking a question. And I'm going to sound really intelligent if I get through this whole thing in one shot here. Can we, for a minute, imagine just how different it would certainly be for the individuals, corporations, governments, the all-inclusive society, had this most important measuring tool, meaning hypothesis modeling, included a threshold curve and Homekic curve instead of just linear? You wanted me to read that in there? I did. If that didn't work, please raise your hand and tell me I didn't do it right. Next one, I won't read names or anything like that. But the next one comes the concern about public information out there, not so much specifically about this, radiation or whatever, but just how we got the public information out. So this is going to be about, and maybe it's not you, maybe it's Joanne may answer some of these questions, I don't know. So the question is, why was the notice for this meeting not sent to the 5 schools where Jana students now attend? And a follow on to that is, why not notify before the meetings, like, weeks before or whatever? Why was only 7 days notice to the community about this meeting? Who would like to answer that question? Somebody has to volunteer. I don't know the answer.
So, yeah, I'll take that question, and thanks for the question. We are you hearing me okay?
Are we hearing them? Not hearing them, sir.
Mike?
You want to? I can hear feedback.
It's working now. Working now? Can you hear me now? Okay. All right, great. So we always try to make sure that we socialize when we're having a meeting as much as possible. So we send the postcards out. We have an email address or an email list that we like to send out there. So if we did not get to a specific party that would like to make sure that they're on that email list, please let us know. We have a sign-up sheet for that. We also have our email address to make sure that we are reaching the widest audience possible. We also post the information on Facebook and Twitter and send out a press release as well. So, ideal time frame is, of course, I'll admit, would have been sooner. But at this point, that's the time when we learn and make sure that we're doing the best moving forward. So if there's any specific areas or specific people that we missed, make sure we get that on our email list so that we can be better moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And again, pay attention to who's answering the question, because they're going to still be in the room. You can ambush them later if you didn't get a full answer that you wanted. Okay? Okay, so I have to call out a person's name because I don't understand something. So Harvey, you asked 3 questions. Is this for a particular site project, or is this a general questions? Kolar, okay, thank you. I didn't catch that. Okay. Okay, all right, so more than one site. Okay, I just want to make sure, sir. Thank you. So he has 3 questions here. Have there been groundwater studies, and what are the results and plans for long-term monitoring? And I'm guessing it's cold water and the industrial site. Who wants to answer that?
Groundwater, everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Groundwater monitoring plans in the future will basically at this point, we will continue indefinitely with groundwater monitoring before we close out a particular site, whether it be the downtown site, record of decision, or the North County site. We have an agreement with the Department of Energy, but we will monitor the groundwater for 2 years post-remediation before we turn over the property to the Department of Energy Office of Legacy Management. So the plans for each site are going to be a little bit different depending on the historical results of the monitoring that we are currently doing and have done in the past. So for example, at the downtown site, there might be particular wells or certain zones that have identified uranium in the groundwater that at locations and concentrations that vary much differently than they do in North County. So we have a comprehensive groundwater monitoring plan in place currently. All of those results are published every year in our environmental monitoring data and analysis reports, otherwise known as the MDARs, which we have brought with us tonight, which are also available online. So without going on for hours about each site and the different groundwater modeling and testing that we do, they're all published. Everything is published in these documents. They are available here tonight, and they are also available online on our website.
Hang on to the mic. I think you're up next. Okay, kind of a follow-on, you kind of alluded to it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I will add, as Robin was pointing out, in all cases at all sites, the groundwater is non-usable, non-potable drinking water. None of the use cases of the ground, there is no residential use cases of the groundwater at our site.
Kind of leads into the next question then. Is it true that the allowable amount of radioactive contamination that is allowed to be left in place is based on the industrial use standards or the residential use standards? I'm guessing the same sites.
in all cases, it's always the residential
Standard.
scenario, yeah, the standard that we use to release a property or a site is based on a unlimited use, unrestricted exposure for a residential gardener user in the future. Yes, that also applies, yes. Correct.
Okay?
But industrial, commercial, residential, all of those things are looked at in the risk assessment early on in the CERCLA process. And then those are used to develop remedial goals based on stakeholder input, et cetera.
Okay. I need to kind of move on because we're okay on time, but you can certainly ask more questions when we get back there, sir. But I want to do your last question. The last question is, will more funding get this cleanup done sooner and faster?
I got that. So program management-wise and project management-wise, yeah, sometimes there is a thought that adding more funding to a specific project or a specific program can expedite work. The fact is that specifically for the North St. Louis County sites and SLAPS VPs, we have. You would look back just a few years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, SLAPS VPs was in the president's budget at $6 million. And it has increased this past year to $30 to $40 million for SLAPS VPs. That's a significant amount of money for an environmental project. So we have increased staff, both on the environmental contractor side and on the USACE side to make sure that we have the proper quality assurance, proper construction management, proper project management for all of the work that's being done. So we want to let you guys know that, hey, we're trying to do this as expeditiously as possible. We have increased funding. We've gotten to a point where engineers and construction and all the personnel, it's like, hey, we're getting to a point at the site where we're limited by certain factors. Some of those factors are our loadout facility. The amount of contaminated soil that we can ship on a given fiscal year is limited. At any site, it's going to be that case. The amount of environmental contractors that are available to do the work is limited at points in time. There's a lot of work going on out there. So it's difficult to say that just putting money on the project or the program can help expedite it. There's a lot of other factors at play in that regard. But we want to make sure that everybody knows that we're doing everything that we can possible to make sure that we do it as quickly as possible. That's why we're committed to doing the remediation at Jana Elementary and continuing on doing remediation at some point along the creek until we're done. We have other areas inside the North County rod boundary that we're going to be focusing on as well, but we also have that as well. So, just to put it in perspective, we may have used to only use one crew. Now maybe we're going to try to use 2 crews to do concurrent remediation or sampling so that we always have 2 things going on at one point in time. And that requires a significant amount of personnel in order to do that, both executing the work and also making sure that we have the quality assurance and project management, contract acquisitions to actually make that work go through. So,
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, considering FUSRAP has been aware of the contamination of Coldwater Creek near New Halls Ferry Road, which, by the way, I have no idea where that's at, since at least 2016, why has FUSRAP not provided information to the public or restricted new construction near CWC, Coldwater, flood zone areas to prevent the disruption of the soil prior to Army Corps remediation?
that's fine. I think I get the gist of it. Where any of the area along Coldwater Creek, and that's why we're providing this information out, is starting to do that with our status map that's available back there, and we're going to be posting it to our website as well. But we do have what's called a utility support policy, where we coordinate with all of the local utilities. That's the most likely person or entity that's going to come into contact with any contamination along those. We have seen that. We've worked with MSD. We've worked with some of their contractors to make sure that if they do go in an area where there's potential contamination, we provide that health physics support. So not looking at the specific map to maybe verify that claim, I know that if there's any area out there that we know of that has potential contamination, or that we can look at a map and say, yes, we need to provide that support, that we're going to. So we want to coordinate with those individual entities, whether it's a government agency, a local agency, or a business owner, a property owner, to make sure that they know if there is contamination in a certain area, to contact us if there's going to be any improvements on that property.
Okay.
And every property owner is notified if there is contamination on the property.
All righty. Two questions from the same individual, but I think physically different areas. So where are the trees that were removed from Jana being transported to? And what is the justification for moving these trees to landfills for radioactive waste?
So the trees at Jana, the question was about trees from Jana School, is that correct?
That's correct?
Those trees are either, number one, going into a landfill, or number two, be it any trees that have any market value or usability are being taken by contractors paid to remove the trees. There is no justification for trees to be sent to a radioactive landfill because trees do not have uptake of radioactive contamination.
So did that answer the question of why you're removing them?
If the question was why are we removing trees, is because the trees are growing where we need to excavate the soil that's remediated. Or gain access. They are not going to a special landfill. There's no reason for that. I did not say that. No. They're just being removed. And contractors that specialize in disposal of wood, they essentially are being paid to take those trees. Vegetation does not uptake radiation.
You want to answer that or you want to do it later? Say again? Okay. Want to do it in the back there? Ask it again, sir? When we get back there. Okay, I need to go on the next one, which is, obviously, we know who you are because you wrote the second question. Don't do the second question? Okay. So the second question is, will the Jana parking lot be used to access CWC? If so, how will the parking lot neighborhoods be protected from the transporting radioactive waste removed from Jana or CWC properties?
I don't think the parking lot specifically will be used. However, any roads, or if the Jana parking lot is used for access, every piece of equipment, every truck in and out of the contaminated area and adjacent areas gets scanned specifically. All loose material is removed before the equipment or truck can leave the site. It's also checked for any radioactive activity before it's allowed to leave. Any dump trucks with soil will be covered and all dust will be controlled. And as a follow-up to that, any damage done, for example, to the landscaping or the parking lot at Jana that we would potentially incur, we would then repair at the end of the project.
Okay. So this next question is one kind that, if I get through it, you're going to think I actually know what I'm talking about. There's a couple of acronyms in here, so I'm just going to read the acronym. Whoever answers the question can explain it. Okay. What are the overarching ramifications to reducing fear in the public with regard to the significance and finding of high 7BE and low 137 CS when there is a high reading of 210 PB? Who wants that? No, not. Really, I got to say the whole thing again? Okay, I'm going to hand it to you too. What are the overarching ramifications to reducing fear in the public with regard to the significance and finding of high 7BE and low 137 CS when there is a high reading of 210 PB.
Yeah, let me get a copy of that. Okay, beryllium 7 and cesium 137 when there's a high reading of lead 210. I believe this is from our recent technical forum. We discussed, or I shouldn't say we, it was discussed on, we were discussing the findings, our lead 210 findings, our scan and testing of Jana Elementary structures in the school and outside the school, like the playground equipment, the pavement, the cafeteria, the kitchen, the gym, all the school rooms, the boiler room. The overarching ramifications to reducing fear in the public. I think it really comes down to just communicating what we found and educating the users of the school and the community in general to try to, understand the lack of hazard that that amount of lead 210 causes. So if people understood naturally occurring radioactive material better and we do a better job of explaining it, our contaminants of concern are all naturally occurring radioactive materials in the environment. Everywhere in all soils across the earth, there's uranium, thorium, and radium. Those are also our contaminants of concern. So we have to distinguish those two before we, find contamination and call it that. So just the method behind our, testing and communicating that to the public and the users of property in general will go a long way in reducing those overarching fears, hopefully.
Yeah, the question asked, what are the overarching ramifications to reducing fear in the public? And the answer to that is hopefully overall it is a positive. And specifically our lead 210 report from Jana School goes through a lot of what you're asking about, what John just discussed. And our hope is that we normally wouldn't do that lead 210 report. It is not a normal document for us. We did it for the very specific reason for education and to help eliminate some of the public fear for levels of lead 210 and associated other daughter products. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to say yes to that and move on. That's why you did the report. Thank you. That was a good exchange. I don't think we caught everything you said, sir, on the phone, on the recording, but I think we understand what you wanted. I got it. Okay. Next question. And it's kind of like two parts, but I think it'll work. Where is the data for the other Jana properties? CWC 387 and CWC 388. I'm guessing it's Coldwater. And then, why were these left out of the report for the Jana Elementary report? I'm not saying they are. The question is, that they were left out apparently.
So when we do documentation, we look at specific properties and specific case to Jana, when the remediation that we needed to do was so close to those properties, they were left out of this report. The pre-design investigation report, we just posted that online. So it's available to go and see, look at the actual report and the data associated with that. We got a request, and so we wanted to make sure that was out there. So we just posted that pre-design investigation report online today. So that's available for use and actually going and looking through that. And what we do with that data, we use that data to inform our overall design. So that's just a normal process that we go through. Is when we go do the sampling, we go through an extensive evaluation, summarize all that data, and that gets incorporated into a comprehensive remedial design, which is like what we're doing on the creek bank at Jana right now, where the actual contamination is. Yes, ma'am. It's
Check
big.
that
It's
out, make sure it is.
153 megabytes.
Tell us it's
so-
not. Okay. I'm sorry, what happened? Okay, go to that table when we get done. We're going to be done in about 15 minutes with the questions, and then we're going to have a half hour to wander. After the questions are done and you guys are going back to the tables, that's it. We're not going to come back here. So when I get done with the questions, I'm going to thank the panelists, and maybe if they want to say something, that's fine. I'm going to ask the staffers of any government official wants to say 1 minute speech or whatever, that's fine. Then you're going to go to the tables and you're not going to see me again. We're not going to come back. Okay. Having said that, I have 3 questions, but I'm going to put 2 together because they're similar, and then I'm going to ask the third. What is your definition of historical, I'm guessing data, historical data, and when was the last year FUSRAP thinks people were exposed based on this historical exposure data? The next question is about Jana, so maybe it's that same area.
I guess when we talk about historical data, you would generally say that's data associated with DOE sampling from back in the day. And then that is used in corporation for development of documents, historical documents like the record of decision. When it comes to past exposures, we don't dive into that for our specific charge. What we have right now is our record of decision. So this team right now is focused on moving forward and what the exposures are now, or potential exposures are now, so that we can evaluate those on the specific properties and move forward and get those properties to a sense where we do, I keep going back to that term, unlimited use and unrestricted exposure. That's the goal at the end of the day. But as far as past exposures, I believe there's some documentation associated with that, baseline risk assessment and so associated documentation that's available on our administrative record to actually show that.
And even furthermore, like the risk, the baseline risk assessments for all the sites that have their own record of decisions, the risk characterization tables are published in the record of decision themselves. It's a summary, and it gives you a very good historical look back at past hypothetical exposures. And furthermore, beyond the DOE data that was collected in the 80s and 90s to develop the initial RIs, there were historical AEC MED documents that contain a lot of radiation measurements, exposure monitoring for workers at the St. Louis Airport site and the downtown sites, for source term, defining and modeling of our current record of decision.
Okay? I'm sorry. Yeah, sure, but we actually have time. Go ahead. Ask a follow-on question.
Okay, so let's talk about Saintson Park. So we went and did remediation at Saintson Park. Our charge, our mission is remediation. I think I must be misunderstanding the question. Do we consider 2015 to be historic?
Documents say that there was contamination found on the surface in two separate articles that I have found. It was said by the Army Corps it was all subsurface. And that is not a true statement.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't know that the Army Corps, us, me, ever said at Saintson Park that there wasn't any surface contamination, because if it was all then why did we go clean it up? We cleaned it up at discovery because of the risk of human contact. Now, once we discover it and we go clean it up, I'm not sure what more we can possibly do. So I'm not real sure what the question is. The question is about exposure. When we discovered that contamination, we made it a priority and we cleaned it up.
Okay, so in that same time frame, you all were saying that there was no immediate health risk, which is what you stick to, right? There was exposures happening to surface level contamination by children playing in Saintson Park up until 2015 when you guys went in and cleaned it up. Is that a true statement?
I'm not going to say that's a true statement. I don't know the answer. What I know is when we discovered contamination there in an area open to the public with the potential for human contact, we made it a priority, we cleaned it up.
2015, that was historical exposure.
I think there's a real discussion about what the word historical means. I need to move on now, but that's probably has nothing to do with what you just said. It has to do with what's the definition of historical. Why does the Corps use that term? I got that. I think we owe that answer, maybe some definition we could give.
Levels of contamination that we cleaned up in Saintson Park did not expose any recreational user, child or adult, to any extra risk. Our definition of contamination is based on our remedial goals, and those are based on a residential gardener type of user. So we clean up the park as if it were a resident who gardens and consumes the fruits and vegetables of their garden.
I'm sorry, we got to move on, but I think that one question I have here is maybe from you, because it sounds similar. Sir, you had something you want to say, and go ahead. You're the last person.
We're not spreading any contamination. We have historically tested vegetation that grows above our contaminants of concern. Our contaminants of concern are not uptake into any vegetation. There is no groundwater contamination. The levels of contamination are much too low, and of particulate matter, they're not uptake by trees. The trees at Jana also, they are not growing, their roots are not growing in contaminated soil to begin with, okay? So the trees that have been removed and shipped off site, They come from a clean area of soil anyway.
To move on, sir, can you send your EPA article to both Robin and John? And maybe they can see that you're talking about different contaminants. Right. Maybe you're talking two different contaminants. Okay, moving on though. Okay, I'm going to read this real fast because I think it's the same question. Okay. Are there any surface... Are there any surface is level? Okay, we're talking about the parks again. Have you found radioactive materials in any of the parks? Is that kind of the same thing you were asking earlier? Somebody was asking about parks. Pardon me. Which parks are we talking about? Anybody wrote this? Same question? Okay, moving on. Thank you. Okay, that's what I thought. When will you be done cleaning up North County?
Our current schedule that we have gone through the process of doing what's called a cost and risk schedule analysis, normal project management activity for the Corps, has around 2038 for us for the entire program, which includes turnover to DOE legacy management. As I said before, the funding that we're getting now, the extra personnel that we have brought on, showing the commitment that we have to trying to do this as expeditiously as possible, hopefully we can move that date to the left. That's why we're committed to keep doing the remediation on Coldwater Creek, starting with Jana and moving on. So as we move forward, we're going to keep giving those progress updates, and we're going to try to see what we can do to move that date to the left. But with environmental contamination, sometimes there are unknowns out there that we have to, when we go into an excavation area, excavations grow, contamination, there's more contamination sometimes, so schedules can slip. So we're not making any commitments right now, but as far as the actual schedule, but we do have the commitment that we are doing everything possible to try and move up that date as much as possible from 2038.
Okay. I got to ask the person who wrote this one question. I'm not too sure what property you're talking about. So is it Don Chaplin? Okay. Which property are you talking about, ma'am, about residential property? What area? Say again? It says, how many residential properties have you found that meet the need to be cleaned up, and how many have been cleaned up? But is that near Jana? Is that near Coldwater? Okay. Okay. Okay, so don't ask that question right now? Okay. Okay, so again, it was North County area? Okay, so North County area, because I have the same exact question for Jana, that's why I'm asking you. Okay, how many residential properties have you found that meet the need to be cleaned up in North County, and how many have been cleaned up?
Right now, in a general sense, when we talk about Coldwater Creek and the areas that we are looking at, this is one of the other things that we have a commitment to make sure that we are actively inventorying these areas. We have around 45 different areas all along the creek that we're taking a look at. That map back there is showing those specific areas. So that's another thing that we are instituting right now is making sure that we are not just the utility support policy that we already have, but we're taking a more active presence, going out and taking a look at these areas to make sure. So one of the areas that was residential was Palm Drive. We found that contamination and we made that a priority to go in there and do that remediation. So, right. I think that the short answer to that is we're still investigating. So the idea behind we need to know numbers. Yeah. No. Yes, and we are coordinating with those property owners right now. We want to make sure that we have a lot of work to do. We have tons of work to do. And some of these property owners have waited because of the other work that we've had to do. There's a lot of other priority work that we've done as far as cleaning up contamination, protecting utility workers, but there's also other stuff that we've had to do. So the amount of work that we have to do, the team that is fully dedicated to doing all this every day are out there. We have over 100 dedicated staff that work at the downtown site and the St. Louis Airport site vicinity properties that are trying to do this work every day.
Thank you for the good comment, too, by the way. Okay, second to last question. It's like the Johnny Carson show, right? Remember that? Second to last question. When you finish the Jana property, will you make it a priority to start remediating the residential properties, I'm guessing at Jana?
Absolutely. And that's our progress moving forward is I will say, we did have a thought process of starting upstream to downstream and just moving on methodically. But we recognize that there are areas where the possibility for human contact is higher, like the residential areas. So those are the priorities. Jana Elementary, as soon as we're done there, we're moving on to the next area. So there, to answer the question, yes.
Excellent. Okay, this one's an easy question. Absolutely not contentious at all. As a citizen, how can I join the Citizen Outreach Group meeting in July? Who wants to take that?
Hey, we're open, and that the citizen outreach meeting is open to anyone who wants to join. So we have a specific meeting invite that Joanne manages and making sure that any interested parties are actually included on that meeting invite. So let us know your name or address, and we can actually include you on that invite so that you're continuously on that update meeting.
So you can go back to Joanne in the back and give me your email address. Okay. All righty. That was actually all the questions. And I got like 45 more seconds. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I miss? Give me the question, man. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes.
And they hit a yard over off Cypress Road, and they moved off their trucks every night into the creek on the other side of the airport. Has this ever been tested? Because you can't see it's clean downstream if you haven't checked upstream. And the subdivision was being built in 47 and 48 when they were hauling the waste from downtown to the airport site.
That's almost verbatim. It was great. I found it.
Yeah, so instead of giving specific answers to your specific examples, let me give a more general answer, and then you could talk to me or someone else on the team separately. We are beginning to reach out and ask, in future public meetings, we're going to have a table specifically set up so that when someone like you has information of so-and-so did such and such, I saw it happen, you should look into this, so that we could start keeping a written record of that and try to run those things down and either eliminate things as rumors, and I'm not saying what you're talking about as rumors, but as an example, we were told over and over about 3 dump trucks buried at Slaps, and guess what? No dump trucks were buried at Slaps. But we want to start making a tally of citizen information to help us with our historical record search and investigations.
So whom did she address her 2 questions to tonight then? How did she get that to us? Is there a website or what did she do?
Well, I think for now, the best thing to do is for us to take let me reach with this great arm I got, this piece of information, this piece of paper, and that will go into the file that we're starting to accumulate about such things. And I'm just going to leave it at that general answer right there, I think. And we could talk more, offline. I think that's a better side discussion.
Talk in the back. And sir, you're the last one again. Hang on. Right.
Yeah, we have several haul road studies from B&K Construction, from hauling waste. Both, we had waste hauled from Slaps to the Laddie Avenue site. And then you have the privately owned residues in all cases that were hauled from Laddie to Westlake landfill. And we have tracked down, it was previously looked at, all the haul routes. The Department of Energy did a haul route. They did their own haul route study and did testing of all the haul routes, including the area you mentioned on the south side of the airport. And we found no evidence of radioactive contamination. So whether it was done or not, just assume it was. Whatever was dumped there and washed out went into the creek and it's gone.
So let me ask one last question to you, sir. But before you ask the question, when you get done, don't just leave. Talk to him back in the back of the room if you need to. Of course. Your last question, sir.
Well, right now we're doing everything under the record of decision, which declares, for example, anything above 5 picocuries per gram of radium-226. Yes. Radium-226. 14 picocuries per gram of thorium-230. 50 picocuries per gram of uranium-238. Okay? Those are our remedial goals. Anything above that is basically fair game. We're going to remove it. Okay, that would be our safe, unsafe type of thing. Yeah. No. Well, we do gamma walkover scans of the soil, the surface soil, and we take a systematic sampling grid and lay it down over the land, and we sample the surface and the subsurface soils. Yes, exactly. In this instance at Jana, in the back of Jana Elementary, the wooded area, those trees that are coming out, all of that soil is below remedial goals.
Okay, I got to stop you now.
Let
First
me,
off-
if I could, I gave a terrible answer
Yes.
earlier,
We're talking
and
about that.
I don't like to give terrible answers. Everyone in the room deserves a much better answer about the trees at Jana. The reality of the trees at Jana, the answer I gave might lead someone to believe that those trees have roots embedded in contaminated soil, and that is incorrect. There's a poster back in the back that shows the area of contamination in which we are concerned with and remediating at Jana School, and it's at the bottom of an eroded creek bank. Any brush that would be associated with those soils will be taken to load out with the soils. The trees that we are removing now are not being removed because they're growing in contaminated soil. They're being removed because we either need them out of the way for access, or they will be included in the construction layback area of clean materials. In other words, we can't reach the contaminated material without first moving some clean soils out of the way. So I hope that that's a better answer than earlier. Certainly it is. That was a terrible answer. And I hope that everyone has a better understanding about the trees at Jana specifically.
Okay, so a couple things. One is, if you understood what those two guys just said, we need you in the Corps. Join the Corps, ask the Colonel. He'll recruit you in. Thank you for the technical answers there. And yeah, you're hired. Okay, so I want to kind of finish up. Don't leave yet. Hang on. I got a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I go to question down? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I kind of think your answer about if it's under a certain, those little numbers things, you consider it safe. Is that your answer, or you want to do some more? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the question. When we say safe, that's a word that is put out there and it's not understood a lot of times. When we say that, when we say it's safe in its current configuration, meaning it's below ground surface and or away from populated areas or not easily accessible. So that's what we want to make sure that people don't overestimate the risk that is out there. We want to make sure people can live their lives and not in fear that there's radioactive contamination out there, because there is, right? But we don't have to think that it is something that can't not be taken care of. We're here, we're doing that remediation, so we have the plan in place. As Jana finishes up, we're going to continue doing that remediation at every one of those areas along Coldwater Creek till we're done. So every area within your district, man, we're going to go and that we've identified where there's contamination in, we're following along as expeditiously as possible to go in there and remove that contamination, take it back to loadout, ship it off to the licensed disposal facility that I had earlier in the presentation.
Can you tell us how you learned of it then, so we can learn that? Another state representative. And then, I don't know if Joanne can talk to it, and we need to kind of finish, but how did the announcement go out to this meeting? Does anybody know?
So we have our normal process of the announcement going out is we send out a postcard, we send out an email as well. So if you're not on the email address, we want to make sure that we do get your email address on there of our email list when we send out the notification for that. And like I said, anybody who's not on there, if you guys know of anybody who should be on there that is not, please let us know that. We want to get the word out as much as possible.
Is she not, is she? There you go. That's kind of a problem. So is Joanne the holder of these email addresses and post addresses? Is that
Yes,
who she goes to?
we actually, at the sign-in sheet, at the very front, we have an opportunity for you to put your contact information in there so that we can actually make sure that we're reaching everybody.
And I can't explain, ma'am, why that is that way, why he got the postcard yesterday. Okay.
Then you would have had 20,000 families that would have been reached. And I know you certainly know how to reach Hazen School District. So again, that's kind of circular. And so we've been talking to you kind of at length about how y'all can connect with the community and provide important information, but we don't see y'all doing it.
As I said earlier, we have every opportunity to try and get better. So if there's specifics that we want to reach a certain audience, we did send out a press release, and it was on our Facebook and Twitter. So I put up the Facebook and Twitter. I know a lot of people are on social media. So please subscribe to the St. Louis District Facebook page, and you will get a lot of those updates that we do send out. So,
Okay. So anyway, I'm sorry, I got to finish. But back of the room, table's still there. But is any elected official or staffer of elected official want to make a last-minute comment before we break? Anybody want to say anything? Okay. Colonel, do you want to say the last word then?
Tonight and just say thank you for being here. However you found out, this has been recorded and will be available. Questions can continue to come in. So this won't be the last public forum, and we will continue with the monthly updates in the future here. So thank you all for coming tonight. Please do share with any others that you may feel maybe interested or concerned. Really, we do have the good news that we shared tonight about the final reports being out from Jana Elementary itself, the work that is ongoing that will continue. So thank you to the team. Thank you to all of our partners. Thank you to the media to help us communicate with the public. And I hope you all have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. So you don't leave yet. Thank you, sir. One clap. I appreciate it. But we have to be out of here by 8 o'clock. So you got 15 minutes to ambush these folks, talk to the people at the table, get their handouts, and then leave. Because 8 o'clock, we've got to clear out.